I'm Anita Wu, and this is Nightline, the top stories. No basis for concerns over national digital ID, says PM. Also, Zionist regime resumes Gaza bombing after truce expires. Our headlining story. Intense fighting erupted once again in Gaza on Friday, killing at least 100 Palestinians, with efforts to renew the Israel-Hamas lapsed truce in the works. Mediator Qatar, together with Egypt and the United States, have been in discussions with Israel and Hamas, confirming that negotiations between the two sides are continuing with the aim of returning to a state of pause. However, the renewed fighting complicates mediation efforts and exacerbates the humanitarian catastrophe. In the first few hours after the truce expired, Zionist bombardments have killed 109 Palestinians across all areas of the Gaza Strip, including the south, which was marked as a safe area. The bombing was most intensive in Khan Yunis and Rafah and also targeted houses in the central and northern areas. Hamas said the Zionist regime bore responsibility for the end of the truce, for rejecting terms to free more hostages, nor to extend it. Meanwhile, aid groups and the United Nations said only a small fraction of health facilities in the devastated Gaza Strip are still functioning. They also stressed that the facilities are in no shape to handle a new wave of casualties.
هذا العدد الكبير الذي وصل إلى مستشفيات قطاع غزة لم تستطع الطواقم الطبية تحمل هذه الأعداد نتيجة تكدس الحالات السابقة في داخل مستشفيات قطاع غزة، حيث أن عملية خروجهم لا زالت بطيئة جدا إلى خارج قطاع غزة. لا زال هناك مئات الحالات المنومة داخل الأقسام في كافة مستشفيات قطاع غزة تحتاج خارج قطاع غزة، إضافة إلى أن الهدنة الإنسانية لم تسعف المنظومة الصحية بالأدوية والمستلزمات الطبية والوقود كما كان متوقعا ومأمونا منها، وبالتالي الواقع الصحي لا زال كارثيا.
In the meantime, the United Nations deplored the resumption of military operations in Gaza, describing the hostilities as catastrophic and urging parties to ensure a lasting ceasefire be upheld. In a post on the X social media platform, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres also said he regretted the resumption of hostilities and hoped a new pause could be established, while UNICEF described inaction on Gaza as an approval of the killing of children and that it would be reckless to think more attacks on the people of Gaza would lead to anything other than carnage. Reducing carbon emissions from the energy and industrial sectors, which account for most of Malaysia's total carbon emissions, is the nation's main focus to mitigate climate change. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong, Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah, said under the National Energy Transition Roadmap, NETR, Malaysia aims to increase the share of green and sustainable energy in its total primary energy mix. Sultan Abdullah said this transitional aspiration is projected to significantly increase not only the average national gross domestic product, GDP, from energy transition activities, but also to generate more green jobs for Malaysians. He said this in his address at the opening of the Malaysia Pavilion at the 28th Conference of Parties, COP28, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong also said that every country must contribute to combating climate change, and such commitment involves meticulous policy implementation in which finance and technology accessibility stand out as the additional hurdles for developing and emerging economies. Therefore, bridging the gap in technology and financing between developed and developing nations is crucial to providing equal access to clean energy solutions at a reasonable cost. In the meantime, the oil-rich host of the COP28, the United Arab Emirates, said Friday it is launching a new $30 billion private investment fund focused on climate projects in developing countries. They hope the fund, called Altera, will stimulate investments totaling $250 billion by 2030. According to a statement, COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber, who is also head of the UAE's national oil company ADNOC, will chair the board of the new fund. It said the fund will drive forward international efforts to create a fairer climate finance system with an emphasis on improving access to funding for the global south. The UAE initiative is seen as part of the country's broader strategy for COP28, pushing to involve the private sector while voluntarily pledging big sums. Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim on Friday became the first person in the country to sign up for the National Digital Identity Facility, also known as Digital ID. With the Prime Minister having registered with the Digital ID, it is set to boost the confidence of the people in the safety and transparency of the new system. Anwar, who is also the Finance Minister, stressed that the people's concerns with the implementation of the digital ID, such as personal and banking records being leaked and chips implanted into the body of individuals, are completely unfounded. He also emphasised that to empower digital transformation, the people must accept the fact that the country needs to progress in line with current developments, including the adoption of technology. Without replacing the MyCard system, Digital ID is a trusted and secure digital form of identification and verification of individuals that will benefit the public and private sectors in verifying the identity of users when carrying out online transactions and to avoid identity fraud. On November 21st, Anwar announced an immediate allocation of 80 million ringgit to the research and development agency Mimos Berhad to speed up the implementation of digital ID and to develop other digital initiatives, specifically involving dealings with the government. The Prime Minister was reported to have said that the digital ID was also an initial step towards allocating targeted subsidies and other facilities by government departments and the private sector. Malaysia's 5 major mobile network operators, or MNOs, on Friday signed a share subscription agreement, SSA, for a 14% equity stake each, or a collective 70% interest in Digital Nasional Berhad, DNB. The 5 MNOs, namely Celcom Digi, Maxis, U Mobile, Telekom Malaysia and YTL Power International, have agreed to pay 233 million ringgit each for their stakes, or a total of 1.165 billion ringgit for DNB's funding requirements.
Langkah seterusnya adalah untuk membantu Digital Nasional Berhad melengkapkan proses pelaksanaan rangkaian 5G mencapai 80%. Dan saya telah sebut sebelum ini bahawa setakat hujung Oktober, 31 hari bulan Oktober, kita telah capai 73% kopang. Bermaksud tinggal berbaki 7% lagi.
Speaking at an event commemorating the signing of the SSA, Fahmi added that the remaining 30% interest in DNB will be held by the government through the Minister of Finance Incorporated, or MOF Inc. The share subscriptions are expected to be completed only between February and April next year, after due diligence requirements are met. Fahmi also said that once the coverage reaches 80%, the government will announce the establishment of a second 5G network, which will be a commercial operation entirely. The issuance of not-to-land orders and standard operating procedures, SOPs, for the entry of tourists to Malaysia will remain and not be compromised, despite the improvements made to the immigration facilities under the visa liberalization plan that commenced from Friday. Immigration Department Director General Datuk Ruslan Jusoh said this counters allegations by certain parties that the plan would lead to the laxation and simplification of procedures for foreign tourists entering Malaysia.
Di immigration kita tetap sama. Syarat-syarat untuk masuk Malaysia kita tetapkan dengan syarat-syarat yang sama. Tiada perubahan. SOP tetap sama. Dengan kata lain, ini adalah bagi memastikan kita mempunyai tanggungjawab dan juga pelancong-pelancong mempunyai tanggungjawab mereka bila mereka berada di Malaysia.
He said this at a media conference after observing the Immigration Department's operations at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport Terminal 1 Arrival Hall. The procedures, among others, require tourists entering Malaysia to possess return flight tickets and hotel reservations or a place to stay throughout their visit. Ruslan added that the department had also established a special team comprising 25 enforcement personnel to monitor the entry and departure of tourists. On Monday, Home Minister Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail announced that the implementation of the visa liberalization plan will be strengthened with integrated security and enforcement measures to curb the influx of foreigners and illegal immigrants. This was in line with Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim's announcement last Sunday that the government would allow 30-day visa-free travel for visitors from China and India to Malaysia from December 1st. A total of 121 Malaysians stranded in Laukeng, Myanmar, due to unrest in the region, were evacuated and safely brought back home via a special flight from Kunming, China. Deputy Foreign Minister Datuk Muhammad Al-Amin said the group, who were in their 20s and 50s, were mostly victims of job scams in northern Myanmar and included an Indonesian citizen who had been stranded in Laukeng as well. According to a statement issued by Wisma Putra, the Malaysian Embassy in Yangon and the Consulate General of Malaysia in Kunming successfully coordinated the evacuation mission through the Myanmar-China border, beginning on the morning of November 30th, with the cooperation and approval of the countries involved. The Foreign Ministry also said the evacuation was implemented effectively following the meeting between Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Fadilah Yusof and China's two vice premiers, namely Liu Guozhong and Ding Xuexiang, during his official visit to China on November 16th. Some of the 121 individuals are also scheduled to give their statements to the police and undergo several legal processes, while others will return to their families. Police are investigating allegations of sexual harassment involving former Community Communications Department JCOM Director General Datuk Muhammad Agus Yusof. Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Razaruddin Hussein confirmed the case following a report lodged by JCOM Assistant Officer Abdul Wahab Abdul Qadir Jilani at the Kajang Police Station on Sunday. The top cop said the probe was initiated under Section 354 of the Penal Code for molestation and Section 377D for indecent behaviour. He added that based on the report, Wahab claimed that the incident had occurred at a hotel in Bintulu, Sarawak on October 21st. Razaruddin also said that Wahab made the police report to protect himself and denied involvement in a plot to bring down and fabricate stories against Agus. He also mentioned that police are still investigating the case and will call in several individuals to record their statements. Previously, Razaruddin was reported to have said that the investigation papers into a lewd video clip, which allegedly featured Agus and Wahab, had been referred to the Attorney General's chambers. The Customs Department crippled an international drug trafficking syndicate and seized 260 kilograms of ketamine worth 15.6 million ringgit on November 21st. Its Deputy Director General for Enforcement and Compliance, Datuk Sazali Muhammad, said acting on information, the enforcement team confiscated 5 blue-coloured barrels abandoned at a dead end of a road in a residential area in Pandan Indah, Kuala Lumpur at 3:50 p.m. The drugs were believed to have been flown from the Ahmedabad airport in Gujarat, India, to the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, with the consignment declared as chemicals. The quantity of drugs seized is enough for 1.3 million users. Authorities are currently on the lookout for 2 main suspects to assist investigations in the case, namely 30-year-old T. Tangaraja and 36-year-old S. Selvaraj. Initial investigations revealed that both suspects have no criminal records and are not drug mules. The case is being investigated under the Dangerous Drugs Act. Surge of respiratory illnesses in China is not due to COVID-19. News from the foreign front right after this short break. See you then. respiratory illnesses in China is not caused by novel coronavirus mutations or immune deficiency induced by the virus. According to Director of the National Medical Center for Infectious Diseases and epidemiologist Professor Zhang Wenhong, Mycoplasma pneumonia, a pathogen that is behind many infections lately, is totally different from the novel coronavirus that causes COVID-19. He added the difference is even bigger than that between a human being and a fly. Director of the Beijing Institute of Respiratory Diseases, Dr. Dong Zhaohui, meanwhile, noted that the latest mycoplasma outbreak affected mainly children because they have weaker immunity than adults. The pair also attempted to allay worries that compromised immunity had led to an uptick in the number of patients with fever who are testing positive simultaneously for multiple pathogens, including influenza, novel coronavirus and mycoplasma pneumoniae. The surge comes in the first full winter since China lifted the stringent coronavirus restrictions it imposed in 2020. The Philippines on Friday said that it was establishing a Coast Guard station on the largest island it holds in the disputed South China Sea to improve monitoring of Chinese vessels, asserting Beijing's claims in the waters. According to National Security Advisor Eduardo Ano, the station has been built on Thitu Island, which is part of the hotly contested Spratly Islands and is expected to be operational early next year. He mentioned that the Coast Guard station would be equipped with advanced systems, including radar, satellite communication, coastal cameras and vessel traffic management, which will greatly enhance the station's ability to monitor any vessels entering the area. Thitu is located about 430 kilometers from the major Philippine island of Palawan and over 900 kilometers from China's nearest major landmass of Hainan Island. Up next, Siva Sangari's bid to claim another title dashed. Sports right after this breather. Don't go anywhere. Squash the 2023 Hong Kong Open. Malaysia's promising run in the tournament has come to an end as the nation's top-ranked squash player Siva Sangari Subramaniam fell short in the quarterfinals against fourth seed Nele Gili, succumbing 1-3 on Friday. The Kedah-born player faced relentless pressure from Gili right from the beginning, losing the first set 8-11 and 6-11 in the second. Refusing to back down, Siva Sangari found her rhythm in the third set, securing a hard-fought 12-10 victory before the world number 4 upped the pace and won 11-9 in the fourth. With Siva Sangari's exit, Malaysia bids farewell to its representation in the tournament. When we return, drugs worth more than 15 million ringgit seized. Don't go away. News on the local front. In Kuala Lumpur, police arrested 3 individuals, including a woman, and seized various types of drugs estimated to be worth more than $500,000 ringgit in a raid on a condominium unit in Churas last Wednesday. District Police Chief Assistant Commissioner Zam Halim Jamaluddin said the suspects, aged between 19 and 33, were believed to have been actively involved in the distribution of drugs around the Klang Valley. According to authorities, the condo unit had been rented for 1,500 ringgit a month since August and was used to store and repackage drugs before selling them to customers. During the operation, police found shabu weighing more than 12 kilograms, 3,570 ecstasy pills, heroin base weighing 373 grams, and MDMA powder weighing 515 grams. Based on initial investigations, the seized drugs, which could cater to about 30,000 users, were being distributed to entertainment centres, students and professionals. Police are currently tracking down the remaining members of the syndicate. All the suspects have been remanded for 7 days from Wednesday to facilitate investigations under the Dangerous Drugs Act. The Kuala Lumpur Sessions Court on Friday allowed the prosecution's application to jointly try the money laundering and corruption charges related to the Jana Wibawa project faced by former Bersatu Information Chief Datuk Wan Saiful Wanjan. Judge Rosina Ayub allowed application and set the trial dates from March until August next year. Wan Saiful's lawyer, Amir Hamzah Arshad, did not object to the request made by Deputy Public Prosecutor Afif Ali. The Tasik Glugo Member of Parliament was previously charged with 18 counts of money laundering involving 5.59 million ringgit before Judge Susanna Hussain and 2 charges of soliciting and accepting bribes of 6.9 million ringgit before Rosina. The prosecution would be calling 32 witnesses to testify during the trial. Seven men were fined 2,000 ringgit each by the Petaling Jaya Magistrates Court on Friday for participating in an unlawful assembly and damaging a car outside the Petaling Jaya City Council Stadium before the Selangor FC Perak FC Super League match last Saturday. Magistrate Nur Natasha Muhtaruddin meted out the sentence on the 7 men aged between 21 and 36 after they pleaded guilty to their role in the fracas. All of them paid the fine. However, 2 other accused, 29-year-old Muhammad Afiq and 30-year-old Muhammad Taufiq Nasaruddin, pleaded not guilty to the same charge and were allowed a bail of 2,500 ringgit each in one shorty. According to the charge sheet, the group took part in an unlawful assembly and damaged a car belonging to a 22-year-old man at the stadium car park at 4:50 p.m. on November 25th, causing 15,000 ringgit in damages. The charge under the Penal Code provides for a jail term of 1 to 5 years or a fine or both upon conviction. The court then set January 31st next year for case mention. Despite being born with only one arm, Lo Chi Kun has participated in grueling obstacle races and ultramarathons. Once bullied and overweight, he is now an inspiration to many. FMT's Sheila Vijayan and Dinesh Kumar Maganathan have the story.
34-year-old Lo Chi Kun was born with only one arm, but his family raised him with love that made him feel whole. Things changed, however, when he started school and was physically and verbally bullied.
Sometimes I just walk like a normal people, but people suddenly will pull my hand, my prosthetic arm, just lift my arm up. But I can't do anything because even though I seek for help, but nobody will be willing to help me that time.
During physical education classes, Low would watch from the sidelines as his classmates played sports. One day, his school organized a compulsory 5-kilometer run. Low asked his best friend to run with him, but halfway he realized he was holding his friend back and decided to quit.
So from that experience, for me, sport is definitely not something that I can't do. I can't even finish a race.
Over the years, food would become a source of comfort when he got stressed. As his weight increased, his self-esteem plummeted. Things changed when a colleague shared about the fitness events she participated in. Low was motivated to join a gym and later even signed up for a 10-kilometer run.
After I start to hear different kind of voices from people around, people laughing at me, saying that, "Are you sure you can finish the race?"
Instead of letting these comments discourage him, Low not only completed the race, but went on to take part in longer distance events, as well as more challenging races. One of these was the Spartan Race, a global series of obstacle races with varying levels of difficulty. Today, Low estimates he has taken part in over 30 Spartan races, both locally and in places such as Thailand, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and the United States. He has also run ultra marathons, with his longest to date capped at 100 kilometers. Low has certainly come a long way from being a victim of bullying to a victor over his circumstances. He also conducts motivational talks to inspire others with his journey.
From my fitness journey, I aware that disability is just a pneumonia, because even we call it I don't call it disability, I call it a special condition. People with special condition that actually have a very talented potential that they need to discover by themselves. But for me, at least, I know that my body can do a lot of stuff that I used to think that I can't do.
Dinesh Kumar Maganathan and Sheila Vijayan, FMT Lifestyle for Nightline.
Nightline draws to a close this time around, but before we leave, here's one for the Pharrell and fashion aficionados. Let's take a look as Pharrell Williams arrived in Hong Kong for his second Louis Vuitton runway outing, showcasing the label's latest menswear designs on a runway overlooking the city's harbour at night on Thursday. With that, I'm Mei Tu. Thank you for watching and have a lovely weekend ahead.